Hello, everyone. I'm Jeremy Geffen, Executive and Artistic Director for Cal Performances, and it is my great pleasure to have with me today Cal Performances 2024-25 season artist in residence, soprano Julia Bullock. Hi, Julia.
Hello.
So happy to be able to see more of you next season, and you're bringing two unusual projects, or one project that is certainly more off the beaten track than the other. So I wanted to start out by talking about these two projects, one of which will open our season, and that is the staged version of Messiaen's song cycle, Harawi, and what exactly that will entail and what it means to you.
Sure. Well, I'm just happy, always thrilled to come back to Cal Performances. It's just a wonderfully warm environment and welcoming audience. So Ahui is a piece that I fell in love with. It was over 10 years ago, I guess now. And I just spent a day going through the poetry and also all of the various recordings that I could find of this 50-minute song cycle that Messiaen wrote for voice and piano. And initially I had the idea of performing this work with another singer and also with two pianists, because the piece deals with duality and actually dichotomies in pretty extreme ways. So the love relationship, life and loss. It deals with the embodiment of man and woman. I guess as I grew a little bit as a singer, and also as I started to perform more quote unquote one-woman shows and also give a lot more recitals, it was getting harder and harder for me to imagine splitting the piece apart just as a vocalist. But then I met some wonderful dancers who are a part of the American Modern Opera Company, of which I'm also a founding member. And because the arts practice, the performance arts practice of Ahui also incorporates dance, I thought, okay, well, what if we added dancers into the mix? So to balance it, to still honor the original idea of 4 people, there are 2 dancers, myself, and then also a pianist. And that includes Connor Hennick is the pianist. Bobby Jean Smith also worked on the choreography and will be dancing in the piece alongside Orr, who is her husband. Anyway, so we're all we're just a happy quartet up there, going through this incredibly intense material. And when I first was looking at Ahui, and the title, and not honestly, I did not know anything about the arts practice of Ahui at all, which is music and movement that originated in the Andes Mountains. And Messiaen was first exposed to this art form through an anthology that was published by some French musicologists. They went and just hand transcribed some songs. And actually, if you look through this anthology, some of the lyrics and also the melodies Messiaen directly quoted.
There are 2 things that I wanted to pick up on from what you just said, which is one of our Illuminations theme for next season is Fractured History, which is about really how we examine history, how history is not static, and our understanding of ourselves, of the culture in which we live, grows based on new information or influences that come to us. And as you were speaking about Harawi, I thought about the fact that here is this composer writing on the other side of the planet from where some of the source material or the inspiration came from, and wanted to see what your thoughts about that.
Yeah. Well, questions of appropriation are big and important. I think as long as those of us who are re-engaging with work over and over again, and re-engaging with history constantly. I'm dealing with classic art and the classics. All that means really is that we are returning to the material again and again, hoping that it will become more illuminated, or we will somehow become more illuminated in the process, and learn something. So I think as long as we are responsibly engaging with material, and then therefore that means looking at history really closely, then the question of appropriation and then the erasure that sometimes or often accompanies that, that cycle can be stopped.
Yeah.
So when we started as a group in Amok, when we started to talk about how to stage this work and how we even wanted to begin the kind of research process collectively, I said it was really important for me to at least engage in some conversations with practitioners of Ahui. And so I found two women who danced and sang, and they lived in Germany. And we just had a bunch of conversations, and with fractures in our consciousness. Part of the joy, at least I feel as a musician, and I guess sort of an anthropologist in some maybe amateur way, I'm healing some of those fractures, or at least trying to rebuild some things.
Your other performance, for many of us who have watched you on the opera stage in the United States, we haven't had the opportunity to see you in Baroque repertoire, which I know has been a healthy part of your diet, and especially in Europe. So I wanted to ask you about this project with the Orchestra of the Age of Enlightenment and finding that repertoire.
Well, I mean, they just reached out to me saying, we wanted to put a tour together in the United States. What do you think? And I was like, yeah, sure, fine. Okay. After just some conversations where they said the main sort of focus is to say that the kind of greatest hits, so these like Baroque greatest hits, which are, almost turned into cliches in one way or another, that they are really worthy, wonderful pieces of music. And I don't know, I guess just put them in a really, I hate to use the word exploit in this context, but to just lay them out boldly and without apology, side by side, let audiences enjoy them. And so, I perform a lot of Baroque material outside of the United States, and really it's been as active, I guess, as a lot of my contemporary singing when it comes to the opera field. But this is just a chance to do it in concert and with a really, really great ensemble.
I wanted to ask you about the things that you will be doing on campus that actually don't relate to or there are in addition to the performance elements. And I know that you had wanted to focus on a better experience of a masterclass, essentially, or a better way of engaging with young singers around repertoire, and wanted to see if you could speak a little bit to that.
Well, sure. Well, I don't use the word masterclass ever. when I'm working. And so I just describe um, these opportunities as public work sessions. I just put out a call, an open invitation to whomever is interested. Um, and so the students themselves who are going to participate, they're sort of self-selecting. I just asked them to maybe reflect on the overall theme from Cal Performances for this coming season. And if there's repertoire that comes up, and it could really be from anywhere, featuring any writer, composer, singer, songwriter, just whoever they're feeling called to lend their voice to. Yeah, just bring it into a public space for us to explore together, and hopefully I can just share some tools, or we can share tools. Maybe they'll teach me something as well. I hope so. Usually that's the case.
And I think we all benefit from your curiosity. So
you're sweet. Thank you.
We are so looking forward to having you around next week. I thank you for your time and and your generosity. And yeah, can't wait to see you more often.
So, well, always a pleasure, Jeremy. Thank you.